Welcome back to the Creative Saints Podcast, episode 4.
Episode 4.
I'm Josh.
I'm Victoria.
And we are stoked to be back, talking about creativity and business and freelancing and life, how that all goes together.
Yeah. How was your day, babe?
It was a busy day. Like 4 projects at one time, get it all done. And I feel like I didn't get it all done.
Most likely,
admittedly.
You did not. Most likely.
Most likely I did not. But tomorrow's another day. How was your day?
It was good. It was also busy, trying to get all the things done. We're about to go on vacation, and mentally, I'm already there. So having to do things around the house, I'm finding it annoying this week.
That's fair.
I'd rather be on the beach, but that's
fair.
okay. Okay, so I was thinking before we get into this episode, I wanted to ask you a question. What's today? We're recording on Monday this week. So let's just talk about last week then.
Yes.
What was your biggest win in business? Like, even if it was just like a specific client or something.
Ooh, biggest win. I think it was actually selfishly ideas for the future of our business and promoting that.
Like kind of ideating what all that looked like.
Ideating, and I've been working on building those.
Yeah.
Because you didn't know that.
No, I didn't.
You did not help with that at all.
Sometimes you tell me things and sometimes you don't. And
last week was the groundwork and the planning and thinking. And is this stupid or is this smart? Is this going to work or is this going to fail?
Well, I'm happy to hear about that when you're ready to tell me about it.
Yeah.
Some weeks I feel like we are so in sync and like 100% in everything that the other one is doing. And then other weeks, I think that for the sake of our sanity, we have to kind of be like, hey, I'll see you this evening and maybe we can reconvene, because I think that partially comes because we do work and live and breathe and move together all the time. Like,
yes,
we're together all the time. That's just what working from home looks like. We homeschool, we do all the things. And so we're just all together all the time.
And I'm thankful for that. But sometimes stuff has to get done.
Yeah. And I also think that we've learned to kind of maybe not just share 24/7 with each other every little detail of like what we're thinking or doing or working on, because then we kind of, put the kids to bed at night and then we're like, well, I already know everything that happened to you today. So what do you want to talk about?
It is nice to like decompress and not like report, but come together and with a clear head. There's not other things that have to get done or another project to do or another mess to clean up or another load of laundry to do.
There's always another load of laundry, but thank you.
That's life.
Okay, so let's move on. So if you wanted a marriage podcast, you can listen to the first 4 minutes of this episode and kind of get into what we wanted to talk about this week. Last week, we really focused on whether the things that are active in your life, is it a gift or is it a skill? What's the difference? And spoiler alert, it's both. I think that we are born with things and we also acquire skills along the way throughout our life. But we had talked about getting a little bit in the like nitty gritty of what it would look like to really hone those things in.
Mm-hmm.
And just kind of talk about the process of perfecting your skills or the things that you're passionate about. I think it's important to figure out those things, like figure out what you are gifted at, figure out what you are passionate about, and you try your hand at a lot of different things and figure it out,
Right.
What is something that you think you're like, that is not my thing at all, I'm out on that?
Oh my goodness. That's a long list.
I mean, it doesn't have to be a creative thing. I just mean like
car repair.
Do you say it's a long list? Okay, well, yeah, I don't think that I want you changing the oil in our car anytime soon.
Not really my forte. I bet I could, but that's not my forte, and
Of the two of us, who would you trust more to change the oil in our car?
You. 100%. I think that things like that, I've always just, that's not my lane. That's not my thing to do. You want me to build you a business? You want me to build you a website, a brand, You want me to come along and help you build strategy? Awesome. Changing the oil? Not so much. Working on a car? Not so much. We have trade-offs on, there are some things, time is your most valuable asset.
Sure.
And so you have to focus on the things that are purposeful and going to lead down. You have to enjoy something in some capacity to go down that path and to work on that. But I like to cook. I like to do a lot of things, so I can't really think of a whole lot.
Yeah, I think that sometimes there's this assumption that, like, because you're on your computer a lot, that
Right.
you're not a hands-on
Yeah.
kind of person, and that I mean, we're making a joke, obviously, that you no, you're not gonna go fix our car, but you are very hands-on with, like, very tactile things. You
Yeah.
love to cook, you love to paint, you love to, we bought an embroidery machine last year, and so
Hmm.
working with different textiles and,
Right.
designs in that way, was a very different and new thing for us both, but you get really passionate about those things. But I do think that those things tend to be your, like, escape from the work.
Yeah.
You can sit down and paint with our kids, or we can
Yeah.
cook together as a family, or
Probably draw more than paint.
yeah, probably. Maybe I'm just thinking of the kids actually. But yeah, I think, you have that kind of like release. It's still a creative thing, or it's
Right.
still just something you enjoy, but it's more hands-on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tedious, monotonous tasks are not my forte, and I will procrastinate until the very last minute
Yeah.
if that is something that needs to be done 100% of the time.
My silence should be very telling in this moment.
Edit that part out.
Yeah, so I mean, let's just say the goal here is to find your lane, right? To
Right.
find your creative lane, to find the thing that you are passionate about. If you see yourself kind of, I always think like in churches a lot of time,
Mm.
like especially if you're like going into a new church. I say a lot of the time, maybe it's something I've only heard. Um, but when it comes to like serving in a church or using your gifts or your talents in a church, I would always hear, find the thing that like annoys you the most, or what's the thing that you noticed the
Right.
most. It's probably the thing that you're passionate about. It's
Yeah.
probably the area that you want to work in. And I would say that that's true of you, at least. And how many times have we walked into a church and you're like, oh, the visuals, or this
Uh-huh.
or that. And we just know that that's going to be an area that you're going to want to get involved in,
Exactly.
you know? Yeah, I think that doesn't just apply to churches. Obviously, if you're the kind of person that drives down the road and you notice good branding on billboards, or you're very intrigued by the process of those things, okay, well, dig into that a little bit. What do you love about it? What do you notice
Right.
about it? Yeah, so just kind of leaning into the things that you find yourself thinking about, I think
Right.
is a great way to
But
find your lane.
I think it's even more than church. When you're scrolling social media and you see something and you're like, wow, that is terrible. Well, maybe it's not terrible. And I'll be the first to admit I can be overly judgmental. But you see something and you're like, wow, that is terrible, or that could have been done better. Challenge yourself. Try and do it. If you
Yeah.
eat food somewhere and you're like, wow, I could have made that so much better. Okay, challenge yourself. Do it.
Yeah, I think you just have to pay attention to what you're passionate about. And it can be really easy, maybe for where we are as a society, constantly distracted, constantly doing so many things. It can be really easy to not feel purpose
Hmm.
because you're not focusing on anything.
Right.
Um,
Or you're focused solely on the financial gain aspect of it, and you get
yeah,
lost of who you are and what your purpose is, chasing dollars.
yeah,
Been there.
that's a good point. Yeah, I've totally been there.
So finding those things that you are passionate about and knowing who you are and what your purpose is, what you are meant to do. You may serve people food at a restaurant, but and this is a very Nashville example, you play music and that's how you get known. That's what your purpose is and what you are chasing is your goal. But to pay the bills, you are doing something, or you want to be a graphic designer and you go, go, go. Graphic design isn't just a one trick pony. There's so many different areas. Are
Mhm.
you an editorial kind of person? Are you a branding person? Are you a sketch artist? Are you an illustrator? Photography. Are you a wedding photographer? Are you a portrait photographer? Indoor, out, all those different things.
Yeah.
You just have to know who you are and try going through different industries, try going through different practices, different types of events. Is a church, a live show, is that your vibe? Or are you a coffee shop,
Acoustic
open mic,
set.
acoustics? Like, what is your passion and
Yeah.
where are you? Find your vibe, find your vibe, find your tribe.
Oh my god. Are you a millennial?
That might be one of the
Are you
dumbest things I've
a
ever
Gen
said.
Xer? What's
Uh,
happening?
but find what brings you joy and
Yeah.
chase it and practice and work at it.
Yeah, and I think the whole, like, idea of everything being monetized, I mean, you can literally just do nothing on Instagram and get money if you have enough
Hmm.
followers. And so there's definitely this idea that anything can be monetized, and it can, but that's not to say that that will pay your bills.
Right.
I think we are surrounded by people that believe you can just get famous overnight or become a success overnight, and there you go, you've made it, you have arrived, or all of your problems are going to be solved, and that's just not the way it works
That might
98% of the time.
that
Like,
might rise you up temporarily, but anything is going to take consistent work and
yeah,
consistent work, consistently showing up. You can get on social media and burn a piece of toast and make a joke about it and get a million views, but that million views is going to get lost pretty soon in the billions of hours of content that are put up every day. I made those numbers up. But you're going to get lost in that and forgotten very quickly. And you can find a niche and you can jump into that and you can do it. But it always is going to be temporarily. People freaked out when TikTok shut down because that was their
right.
way of making money post COVID. And
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of the age old adage of like having all of your eggs in one basket, and anything can happen. You can have a job anywhere and then not have it tomorrow. Anything can change. But I think when you are in a space where you are just working on yourself, right? And your skills and your talents and
right.
finding what you're passionate about, it just makes it so much easier
Mhm.
to not find work, but just be happy, I guess, with like where you are and what you're doing. I don't know if that made sense.
It's easier to find joy when you have some type of drive and some type of passion and
Yeah.
purpose. If you're just showing up and doing something and you don't know what it is, and you go home at night and you check out and unplug and watch whatever's
Whatever
trending on
the newest
Netflix,
miniseries on Netflix is.
right, you're not ever going to build anything up and you're going to stay stuck in the same rut. If you want to change your cycle, you have to put in the work to shift gears and to go down a different path. And it's we were talking before we started recording about the saying of, oh my god, you just blew up overnight. And people miss the 5, 10, 15 years of hustle and grind and
Yeah.
pain and tears and eating ramen noodles and struggling.
Don't get me wrong. I'd love if this podcast became an overnight success, but
I mean,
that would be on the end of 6 years of doing this business on our own. And,
right,
before that, we both lived lives and, had things and stuff. And we have kids and we have bills to pay and all of those things.
right.
There's so much work that goes into it. And getting to this point where we even felt comfortable enough to start a podcast came on the heels of honing our skills. I think
Yeah.
that's really what it comes down to,
This is
is
learning new skills. This is
feeling like we had anything to talk about or anything that we could share with other people
right.
came from been there, done that,
Yeah.
so I think, kind of what we were talking about, finding what you love, finding what you're passionate about, finding the things you notice, your natural talent,
Hmm.
but then how do we build those skills? What are
Yeah.
some deliberate steps to actually do that? I mean, it's easy to just say, "Oh, I'm just going to sit here and I'm going to work on it or think on it or I'm just going
Right.
to draw a lot." In your case, obviously, we are going to talk a lot about graphic design or creativity in that way because that is what
Right.
we do. I can sit in front of the piano all day, but like it's not necessarily going to make me better. I need to
Right.
actually be working toward it.
Hmm.
And
This is going to sound very old school, And so many people are like, you got to be kidding me. But when we started running our own business, found that having some post-it notes by the bed and a
Yeah.
pen, and I would make a list of the things I needed to do, the things I wanted to do, and challenge myself to do a couple things. One of those things was when I was out to talk to one random person every day.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that actually.
And I, at the end of the day, would have crossed off tasks, and whatever I didn't complete today would go on the post-it note next to the bed for tomorrow. And I would take that and I would keep the post-it note in my pocket. And I don't do the post-it notes anymore, but I have a moleskin notebook that I handwrite notes and sketch next to and do all sorts of different things. And some of those things are, I don't have time for this. I don't have brain capacity for this, but at some point in the next few months, I'm going to see this and remember I had this idea that I wanted to go research this or think about this, try my hand at this, talk to you about this, whatever it is,
Mhm.
reach out to a mentor or something and talk
Yeah.
about something. And that just tangible of writing something down breaks the mental cycle of the technological screens in front of us everywhere we turn. We're currently sitting with 4 screens in front of us
Yeah.
and we're doing a podcast. We're in front of that all the time. So
Yeah.
handwriting is such a lost art. It also will help your memory
Mhm.
in handwriting things and you remember I need to do that because it's there. Don't get me wrong. I also set a lot of reminders on my phone because
Because Apple, baby.
because Apple. But I think that the task list is
Yeah.
a great place to start
Yeah.
and get things out of your head so that you can focus on other things.
Yeah. I actually want to go back to what the first thing you said was really quick because I totally forgot that you used to do this, but you said anytime you worked out of the house. So you would choose a couple days a week and you'd go to a local coffee shop and sometimes you'd switch it up or sometimes you go to the same one and you had decided, I mean, this was probably at least a year, I feel like you did this, that no matter where you were going to meet one new person. Is that
They're
right?
almost 2 years.
Really?
Yeah.
And sometimes that was just the barista
Mhm.
and sometimes it was the interesting person across the room.
It was just engaging in conversation with
Yeah.
somebody or asking about their day or just something so small.
Yeah. I think what's so interesting about that is you, of the two of us, are not the extrovert.
I am not.
And it was really something that didn't come naturally to you
No.
to do. But again, in this space of being a creative, oftentimes I do feel like the people that we meet work from home.
Yeah.
And that can be so isolating. And so you have to be deliberate. You have to make a choice to get out of your head, get out of
Mhm.
your space, get out of the four walls that you're normally working in, and take a walk, meet a new person,
Mhm.
you know, do something different. You have to be deliberate about it. It's not going to happen for you. And I know that some of the people you met during that time are people that you are still close with today
Mhm.
that served as mentors in your
Right.
life that you would end up meeting, sometimes it was a client, it would turn into work.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I used to love hearing you come home and talk about who you met. And it's so easy now to connect with people. You
Yeah.
go and follow you, go follow them on Instagram and exchange numbers. And
Mhm. And
you
business cards now.
immediately, I love that it's 2025 and we're back to having business cards like
Wait,
it was in the late 90s.
I have not had business cards. I've never had business cards. Not for no, not
You
for
do
this.
now.
My side business, I tried. Yeah,
Yeah, people are doing business cards again. It's so interesting how trends circle back around. But I think that it is just so cool. I don't know. We've seen the fruit of that in our friendships
yeah,
and in our business where you took a step outside of your comfort zone
yeah,
to do that. And I'm really thankful for that. And it did. I do feel also as your wife, like I can say it also wasn't just a business move, but, like, it was an actual relational move for you. I feel
yeah.
like over the past couple years, you actually have been more outgoing with people,
Mhm.
which is great for me because I love when we can be outgoing together.
I want to know people's stories and what they're doing now.
Yeah, and that's the other thing is, like, again, in the term being deliberate, it's not just, "Hey, nice shoes." No, we're both working from the same coffee shop today. What are
Yeah.
you working on? What's your project? "Hey, I'm Josh." Like,
Mhm.
and not being passive, but being deliberate, having a
Intentional.
goal, being intentional. Yeah, I probably said deliberate too much. Intentional would have been a better word. Being intentional with people, their time, their resource, their information, their knowledge, like whatever, how can they help you? How can this conversation go both ways
Yeah.
and like we can leave here having both gained something
Right.
from meeting each other?
Yeah.
I think that that is just really cool. And anyways, I just wanted to go back to that
No,
because
I think
that's something that was so outside of your comfort zone.
that's really cool that you felt that way and actually saw the change occur in there over it took a long time. It's not a go out and do this 3 times and you're just this person. It takes a lot of work. A couple things that I wanted to say about those things are never go at this trying to gain a client, gain a customer. If you do that, it's going to fail. People will smell the sales on you.
Yeah.
Get to know people. Another thing is find mentors. Mentors are such an incredible resource and
Not just YouTube mentors.
not YouTube mentors, someone that you can call, text, meet up with in person. Don't be the smartest person in the room and find someone who's doing, once you've kind of honed in on what you want to learn more about,
Yeah.
and you're not just in this navigating exploratory phase, once you kind of hone in on that, find someone who's doing what you want to do and get to know them. Talk about how they got where they are. Talk
Yeah.
about what they did, how long it took, what routes they did. They're going to give you tips and tricks,
Yeah.
but respect their time, respect being on time, respect meeting with them and responding with them, engaging with them. Listen when
Buying their
they're,
coffee if you can afford
well,
to.
right. If you can't afford to, still buy their coffee. But listen to their story, listen to what they're giving as advice, and keep your mouth shut. That's something that took me probably 3 years to do. I was like, oh yeah, I've done that. Oh yeah, I've tried that. Oh yeah, I'm going to
Yeah.
do that. Keeping your mouth shut and listening is so much more valuable when you find those people who have gold that they're just handing you.
Yeah. One thing that I wanted to mention this week was the idea of mimicry
Yeah.
when you are studying your craft, maybe when you're
Hmm.
just coming up, maybe when you're just finding out what it is, and how to do that in a way that is unique to you. So maybe you are an illustrator and you just absolutely love to draw. You find yourself drawing all the time. You find yourself doodling on napkins. And so that's something that you want to look into. That's something you want to pursue. Well, there are a bajillion people who have been illustrators before.
Hmm.
And I think that there is really something to studying others in their field and saying, hey, I really like what this person is doing. Let me look into how they do it. What
Yeah.
softwares do they use? Or how did they get connected with publishers? Or
Right.
like, let me find some sort of path that I can take. Now, don't go and copy their illustrations. Do your own thing. But there is something to mimicking the path or finding someone that you can look up to and say, I love what you're doing. How can I apply it to my life with my own unique spin?
I would challenge people to contact, send a DM,
Oh,
send a
absolutely.
message, ask them questions in person, build a relationship with people. I think that's something that's going to come up a lot in this podcast is being relational and
Yeah.
building relationships because you can't do it alone. You won't do it alone. Building relationships, networking is such a trigger word for a lot of people. I don't want to network. I don't want to do that. I don't either. But if you want
Yeah.
to be a human being, networking is so important.
It is, and I think that maybe there's a better word for it because I do think you kind of mentioned before, like networking kind of has this idea of like I'm going to go to some weird corporate event and I have to network and I have to, be around these people that I don't want to spend time with. But it's not that. It's relationships. It's building relationships, and I think that if there's anything that 2020 taught us, it's that we cannot do this on our own. A whole lot of people were absolutely miserable trying
Hmm.
to make things work on their own. And yeah, we got some cool benefits out of it. Like now we can all work from home and we can work from our pajamas. But 5 years later, we are seeing the effects of that
Hmm.
loneliness
Yeah.
and that isolation that maybe the things didn't pop up right away. And maybe not even like we're seeing the effects of it, that we are seeing the turnaround where people are like, oh, wait, I don't want to do this on my own.
Yeah.
I can't do this on my own. I need a group of people or just a
Right.
person to come alongside of me, whether it be to encourage me or to gain insight from. Maybe, maybe that is your person. Maybe it is someone that you look up to. You look up to their skill, you look up to their story or the way that they've honed their own path.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay to say, I like that. I want to do that.
Yeah.
And it's not, I almost just said the word poser and I felt so old. You're not being a poser if you do that. Make that person the smartest person in the room. They will appreciate that. Like,
Right.
make them feel valued so that you can learn from them. I think it's really cool, the idea of like being able to mimic something without copying it,
Yeah.
using the relationships that you've fostered in that way. It just kind of all goes hand in hand.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, there is the technical side of all of this. You work in a lot of software programs with
Right.
your things. So there's that part of it too. You're not just creative. It's not just that you can draw or you know what colors look good together, but you have to learn that side of it as well in order to be
Right.
efficient in what you're doing.
Well, and that takes a long time. I would say that, not to keep harping on graphic design, but that's what I do, what we do. So, being an illustrator, when I'd been in there for a year, I was fine. I knew how to get around. 5 years in, I was pretty expert at it. 10 years in of using I think 12 years now of using Illustrator on a fairly regular basis, and for the last 6 years, literally every day, I'm an expert in Illustrator and can do things, but it took 12 years.
Yeah.
I can't even count the hours. Yeah, I can't even count the hours, but it's not going to happen overnight. But you can set goals of, oh, I like what that person did. I want to try and recreate that and mimic them. I want to be able to do that. And if it takes learning another piece of software that you don't know, is that a path that is going to resist you and keep you from going down it? Or are you going to try your hand at it, watch some
Yeah.
YouTube videos, and actually get in and hands on try and do it? If you want to do something, you can probably Google it and find a YouTube video to figure out how to add anchor points to something in Illustrator, or set your keyframes in After Effects, or edit your photos in photo. You can probably find out how to do those things on your own. See what you like to do and see what you don't like to do. Give it 2 or 3 times, and if after that you're like, I don't like working in Photoshop, I don't blame you. Don't do it. Work in whatever you're comfortable in.
Yeah.
Um,
I think that's really good. And there are so many options out there. Obviously we're all Adobe, and so that's the programs that we work in. But we're not all Adobe. I mean, we pay for it every month, so we should be. Um,
Wish we owned stock in Adobe at this point.
yeah, but there are so many options out there, and I think that, okay, we talked about mimicking can be good and all of those things, but there's also that comparison element, right? Where
Right.
like if I can't immediately do it as good as this person, I'm just not going to do it. And I hate that for so many people because I think the comparison of that really shuts us down
Right.
and keeps us from moving forward, keeps us from honing in our skills. And then it's easy to just move on to something else, maybe that we're less passionate about. And maybe you have something you're equally passionate about that you can move on to. And it's just not your thing.
Hmm.
But I do think that because we are constantly seeing what everyone in the world is doing at all times, we have these little windows into everyone's lives, and we're seeing the most perfect version of that. There are people that we both follow in areas that we're passionate about that I'm like, they're the most perfect version of that thing.
Hmm.
And there's so much that we're not seeing. We're not seeing the 12 years that it took to learn the
Right.
program. We're not
Hmm.
seeing all of the work that went into that. And so I just want to encourage people, I guess, to like not let comparisons stop you from growing. Don't let it stop you from continuing. It's not worth giving up to say, well, I'm not immediately as good as someone else,
It's
because immediately doesn't exist.
no.
Like, it just doesn't in this
Mm-mm.
way. Growth does not come immediately, period, in any area of our life.
It takes time, and comparison is one of the worst things I absolutely hate when I hear someone say, "Oh, I will never be as good as that person." And I do it too. But something that I was thinking about last week when I was looking at our website and the way that we brand and market ourselves, we don't have the same brains. You and I don't have the same brain.
Yeah.
You and person
Ballerina
A
farm.
and yeah, me and Made by James or Krista, we don't have the same brain. So we're not ever going to have the same thing. So you
Right.
can't compare. And you can't really compare talent because a lot of creativity is based on the brain that God gave you
Mhm.
and what you choose to do with it and how you choose to learn. We had someone that we invited to come to the meetup,
Yeah.
and I see them as a creative person in their avenue of leadership and planning things out and structuring things. And he came up to me and he said, "Bro, you invited me, but I am not a creative." And I was like, You are totally missing,
Yeah.
you're totally missing it.
It's not just a buzzword. Like, it literally is who
It's
we were all created to be.
it's all of us are a creative. I have an amazing friend and mentor who hopefully we can get on here.
Yeah.
He's always said that we were created by the divine to make amazing things and to build amazing things, and it flows through if you let God work through you. But God also requires work.
Not to go on a little biblical tangent here, but we've been reading through Exodus as a family. And
Light
I'm
reading.
it's not exactly light reading when you're doing it with your kids and you're having to read ahead to see if you're going to traumatize them. Um,
How many
but
bulls are getting killed today?
I'm editing that out. But I was thinking about that whole chapter. We kind of touched on this before when the priest's garments are being made
Yeah.
and how God just gave them the skill. He said, just go to the ones who I've placed the skill in them to do
Hmm.
this. And isn't that really what it's all about? But they'd never done it before.
Right.
That was one of the most creative things if you're reading through the details of how these things were sewn together and what the patterns were and the type of thread and the colors and just all of those things. It was so incredibly creative at its core.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
it wasn't just a cool idea.
A lot of
Like,
intricacies.
so many intricacies, and it was creative. And I think that when somebody sees a title of a podcast like Creative Saints, maybe it can seem like, well, that's not me.
I'm not a photographer. I'm not a designer. I'm not
Yeah.
a, but
Oh, I'm not a creative.
you
But
are.
like you literally are, you know? You just have to figure out what that is and reframe. Chances are you're already doing something that is creative.
Yeah.
Do you want to be better? Do you want to be a better creative? Do you want to do a different creative thing?
Hmm.
Absolutely, those things are possible, but
Right.
chances are you're already being creative wherever you are, whatever you're putting your hand to.
I'm going to
Okay,
start asking people when they say I'm not a creative, I'm going to start asking people, what do you do? And tell them why they're creative.
yeah, that's good. See, that can be your new coffee shop
I,
networking
I
move.
challenged myself.
Okay, so we talked about mimicking, we talked about getting mentors, how to kind of challenge yourself, maybe to grow in the software
Hmm.
programs that you are needing to work in or wanting to work in, wanting to learn. What about setting goals?
Yeah.
What is something that you have done that has been a goal setting? You mentioned the post-its. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
But have you maybe as you're sitting down in the morning and you have a lot of tasks in front of you, what are maybe some ways that you've been able to set goals in either getting the work done or in honing in your skills?
That's good. I definitely use social media in a different way. I have followed people that I think are doing incredible things and will challenge me to think differently than my brain is wired, and that sparks creativity. And when I say people who are doing things differently, some of the people I follow probably would not even consider themselves creatives because a lot of the times it's looking at someone who is doing something that they probably wouldn't consider a creative profession, like landscaping or inspirational quotes, which sounds cheesy, but if you look at it, and the people that I'm following for inspirational quotes are people who follow economics and trends across the globe of how we're doing as a society who really study that. I like the way that they put things together. So it kind of inspires me. It gets my brain firing and thinking about different things, reading the verse of the day or reading a Proverbs or something, just kind of refocusing the day, getting everything there. Definitely drinking coffee. And just planning out, okay, I need to accomplish this today, and I have all of these things in my head. If there's things in my head, I dump them out first before I get started so that I have a clear head to focus on a project.
Yeah, it's good. It's kind of how you start your day and stuff. All right, set measurable goals, I think is
Yeah,
important because, okay, my goal is to be, you named the profession, right?
yeah,
Like my goal is to do that. Well, it kind of goes back to what we're saying. You're not going to be that tomorrow if you're not already in the groove of
hmm,
doing that thing. So if you have something that you're wanting to do, you just need to find a point A and get there. So maybe you want to, let's just use the illustrator thing again.
hmm,
Maybe you want to illustrate children's books or something like that. And I mean, you need to practice. You
yeah,
need to set some measurable goals. Let's decide on the first 2 pages of a book that need illustration, and you
right.
need to practice, get 2 pages done.
Hmm.
Try that.
Develop your characters or
Yeah.
develop your landscape, get your color palette, get the style that your lines are going to look like.
Yeah.
Are they going to be outlined or is it going to be just color blocks? What are you doing? Define something.
Yeah.
Um,
And set goals. It doesn't have to be all done in the same day. Maybe you're like, hey, I kind of want the look of my book to be like this, and here's the color palette that I'm going to choose. And if you decide on that thing, you've accomplished something.
mm,
And so, okay, now I think that I want the characters kind of to have this
right,
face structure or look to them, so let's decide on kind of what is the style of the character going to be, and then what are your lines going to be like? Are they going to be more sketch? Are they going to be
mm,
thicker cartoony
right,
coloring book lines? Just deciding, are they going to have outlines at
right.
all? Making those small decisions toward what your end goal is are so important, and they're measurable goals, right?
There
They're
are measurable
easy
goals.
to set, they're easy to accomplish.
I think to interrupt you, a easy if you want to go into illustration, something easy to do would be, okay, what is in my brain? What do I want? Let's write that down. Let's sketch it out. Let's whatever, basic. And then mood board it and come up with some research and some structure of, is this already out there? How is this done in this
Yeah.
style? What's going to sell? What's trending now? What is from a golden book from 1940 that is still selling millions of copies a year, and creating all right, in that research I found out that it takes 6 months to write and illustrate and publish a children's book. Okay, now you have a plan and you
Yeah.
can take those chunks in that list and set realistic goals. You know that this whole project is going to take you 6 months.
Yeah.
Now, how do you set a 1 week goal, a 2 week goal, a 1 month goal, a 3 month goal, and get it to completion?
Yeah.
Give details to yourself
Yeah.
and reward yourself when you hit milestones. Maybe don't reward yourself every day, but when you have
Just small little rewards, iced coffees and pastries.
let's go back to the illustrating. When you have storyboarded and sketched out the first 10 pages, or you have the first version, go treat yourself to a lunch or a coffee or whatever's a treat for you. Go reward yourself in some aspect.
Yeah, no, that's great. Okay, we're gonna move on because this is already our longest episode we've ever recorded.
Oh,
Can't
dang.
believe we've been talking this long. Um, Once you have gotten to the point where you have mastered a skill, and I think that, are we masters? No, but have you been an illustrator for 12 years? Yes, you have.
Yeah.
Getting to onto the other side of that and being able to teach people what
Mm,
you've learned is so important. And maybe that's partially the goal of this podcast for us, is
mhm.
to, we've talked about it, bringing people alongside, creating a community of creatives that are just cheering each other on and
Right.
building cool stuff together. Maybe it's not so relaxed. Maybe you do want to actually teach. Maybe you want to build courses. Maybe you want to do online classes, and whatever that looks like. There's always an avenue to, like, I've mastered it. Now what?
Yeah.
There's always something else that can be done. And maybe it's not teaching, maybe it's something else, or maybe you move on to a new skill set. But I think that there's really something to be said for teaching others what you know
Yeah.
and passing that along, passing on the highs and the lows
Hmm.
and the do's and the don'ts and all of that. It's really powerful. It's really important, I think, to like encourage other people to do what they love.
Pass that on, become a mentor to other people when you are at that level where you've proven your skill set, but also continue to find new mentors. Never be the smartest person in the room.
Yeah.
Research how to start a YouTube channel and show people how to do it. Contact your local high school and go in and see if you can volunteer to teach. Get some practice in teaching the next generation how
Yeah.
to do it. Show them how it's done.
Yeah. That's great. All right. So let's, because this one was so long, you want to kind of recap or
Yeah,
you
let's
think
do
we're
it.
good? Does that dumb our audience down a little bit? Find your lane, find what you're passionate about. How,
Yeah.
like decide what that is. What are you noticing? What do people compliment you on?
When you do something,
What are
when
you
you put a
annoyed by?
project out there,
Yeah.
what gets the biggest reaction from people? Because you are effectively communicating your skill when people notice.
Yeah. Find your lane. Talent, God-given talent is great.
But you gotta work.
You got to work. Skill wins. You have to work at it. That's
Mhm.
just really what it boils down to.
Even once you become an expert,
You have to
you
keep working,
have to keep working.
keep
Software
learning.
will change,
Yep.
trends will change, you will change. Mentally, you'll have different ideas.
Hmm.
And you have
You'll
to,
want different things.
yeah, nobody wants to create the same thing or do the same thing every day forever. Staying consistent in challenging yourself to grow
Yeah.
and to build new things,
Yeah.
grow new things. That's
Wow.
awesome.
Okay. This was a good one. Let's just kind of encourage everyone, guys, pick something we talked about today,
Yeah.
and go do it. I don't know.
Try a
Like
new
where
skill.
what place in all of that are you in? Like where are you at? Are you figuring it out? Are you trying to perfect it? Are you about to go mentor someone? Let's kind of be intentional with
Yeah.
what our next steps are. So leave us a comment. Where
Yeah.
are you
Leave
at
us a comment
on your
on
journey?
Spotify, Apple, YouTube, wherever you're listening.
Like, follow, share. I'm
If
gonna say it every week.
every single time. We're going to create some jingle music for you. Interact with us on Instagram. We would love to just get to know you and know where you're at and where you're listening from, what you're doing, where you are, and if we can ever be of assistance.
Yeah,
We're
reach
always
out.
here.
We want to meet you guys. We want to talk. We want to build stuff. We want to, really grow this not for the sake of growth, but for the sake of intentionality, for the sake
Yeah.
of people.
Nobody has to be lonely or feel stuck.
Yeah, we don't want to just sit here and record these for ourselves because we could just do this lying in bed instead. It'd be a lot more comfortable. Um, but reach out, guys. We'd love to hear from you. Josh is posting these really cool videos every week telling you when the podcasts are being launched, and I will eventually be comfortable enough to do that.
I have challenged myself to get on camera and do the thing.
You and your challenges.
Challenge yourself. Have an amazing week.
Bye, guys.